engagement for this portion of the meeting. The purpose of this gathering is to hear from and converse with members of the public. Format is an informal discussion forum. The board president holds the authority to restrict the length of time or cease the conversation with any participant on any topic of conversation. No predetermined agenda topics will be scheduled, yet some rules do apply. Employee personnel matters are considered confidential and therefore should not be brought up. Address the board as a whole. Do not single out individual board members. And lastly, though a majority quorum of the board will be present, no official board actions will be taken. Decisions will not be made, votes will not be taken, and official meeting minutes will not be taken. So I welcome our first guest up to the podium, and if you could step forward and state your name, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm Ron Youngblood. Okay, my son came down with something last spring, I think it was, cold or something, to their allergies. I thought it was that. And then his mother got it, something, and it wasn't going away, so she went to urgent care and they gave her a COVID test and it was positive for COVID. So I came to pick up my son at school that night, and I thought he probably has COVID too. And I wanted him tested here at a nurse's station. I came there, I was shocked they didn't have any COVID tests. Why not?
I'm sorry, Ron, what was the date on this?
Well, it was last spring sometime.
Oh, like spring
Of this year.
of 23.
Yeah, this year, yeah. And I thought, can't you get those tests for free? How come the nurse's station doesn't have COVID tests? You know,
A fair question. I don't know. I think I'm going to turn this one over to.
I have an article here in the paper. I'll give it to you. It says, anticipating a spike in COVID-19 cases overall, the federal government announced Wednesday that will offer rapid COVID tests free of charge to school districts across the country this winter. And he said that districts will be encouraged to both stock nurses' offices and send students home with the tests. These tests are easy to use and can play an important role in containing the spread of the virus in schools and communities. I mean, if we're not giving the nurse the tools they need, why have a nurse?
Well, in general, I don't believe it's school policy to be testing the kids, but I'd like to turn it over to our superintendent, who perhaps can field the question a little bit better than I could.
So I definitely could talk to our nurse. I have not had any conversations about this, so I can do a little research.
So
Adam Bolt might be able to have some.
And for those of you that were on the board, if I misspeak about a few years ago, just let me know. But I know that when we were going through COVID and we were having conversations about the vaccines and the tests, we never had tests available in the building. We looked at symptoms and we would send the kids home to then get tested if they had the symptoms for COVID. Initially there was no like at-home tests, and the tests were very, difficult to get. At a time when the tests did become available, there was conversation by the board, and I think that this is when we had large community engagement in our board meetings. But I believe that the decision was made that we were not going to test kids at school. Am I incorrect in that recollection? Right?
I don't think you're incorrect.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not getting
I
vaccinated. In fact, someone told me there's a lot of anti-vaccine information out there. Someone told me I was committing child abuse by having my son vaccinated for COVID. I mean, they're that against the vaccines. They're getting false information, very likely. So, I mean, I thought, they're recommending, the education department is recommending schools have COVID tests. Why not? We had to run down we ran down the Wauwatosa, this pediatrician, to be diagnosed. But then I got it a few days later, got something, and I tested myself. I went and bought the test. But they recommend you give the test out to students to take home. Where my son's mother works, she works in a school. she's a corrections officer, a juvenile corrections officer in Milwaukee County, and Wauwatosa Public Schools runs the school there. They have hundreds of tests. You know, so I just thought it was rather odd, you know, that a student couldn't come in, or a teacher or whatever, a staff member couldn't come in and be tested for COVID.
Sir, may I ask what brings this issue to the front for you tonight?
This article,
Okay.
which was a few weeks ago in the journal, I'll give it to you. Here.
I think individuals can actually get the free COVID test if they want. Oh, yeah. Families can order them.
Yeah, we ordered some, they never came. They never came to our house. You know, I had to go out and buy one.
Thank you very much.
That was in the journal a few weeks ago. So that's all.
Again, I think like testing on probably a great number of things when people have symptoms. Typically, I think the reliance would be on the healthcare system and on parents.
Yeah.
We haven't adopted that policy to do routine testing. And hopefully, if those quantities of free COVID tests are still available, that might be something that, you know, individual parents could look into ordering a supply for at-home use.
Yeah, well, you can order them for the school and send them home with the students. Yeah. I was just shocked that the nurse's office didn't have any COVID tests. Because, you know, it's pretty, that disease can be very bad. I know some people are totally disabled, you know. They're thinking it's more of a disease of the blood than a disease of a respiratory disease. It affects the blood vessels, can affect the blood vessels. It goes to heart, lungs, kidneys, and brain. I know someone who couldn't work for a long period of time. I don't know if she's still back at work as a personal trainer because her high school son brought home COVID, and she got it, and she tried to come back to work, and she couldn't remember anything. Couldn't work, you know, brain fog and fatigue.
I'm sorry to
So
hear that.
this is before the vaccines were available, so but a lot of people are not getting vaccinated. You know. So I thought it was just one more tool, you know, helping people.
So, Ron, I just Googled this CDC free COVID test. Any individual in the U.S. is eligible for 4 free at-home tests,
I know.
beginning November 20th, 2023. So I would suggest just stocking up and have them in your home. Be
Oh,
ready
you
to-
should have them in the school. Why do we have a nurse? Why do we have a nurses? Why are we employing a nurse if you don't have a basic test like that?
Our nurse is actually really busy
Oh, yeah, I'm
with
sure.
non-COVID issues.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure, but, you know, they should be able, I would think, you know, I expect you to come in here and get a test, you know?
But where would you suggest drawing the line? If they have a COVID test, should they have a hepatitis test, should they have any?
Well, no, they can't have everything, but
So
COVID is,
I think the
It's
policy
free.
that the board discussed going back to that time period is still valid now.
Mhm.
Obviously, this is the first discussion I've had on COVID in at least a year plus.
yeah, it's not as serious right now, perhaps. But, you know, for winter, well, that's what I thought.
Well, thank you so much
Okay.
for bringing the article forward, and thank you for coming forward.
Yes, okay.
Is there anyone else? Okay, if not, we will close this portion of the evening and reconvene shortly at 7. Thank you.
Test. Oh, yes. Test. Okay. I guess when Sue and Nat were presenting earlier, they were standing 6 feet away and was picking them up really well.
On the microphone?
Yeah.
My voice carries.
No, I was going through the mic.
I know Cole.
I know it carries.
Teacher
He's
Jack.
raised
Yeah.
at me a few times.
Teacher Jack.
Is that the right place?